billions of liters of milk spilt since something like 2012. Billions, like billions with a B. You'd think that you could, if you produced more milk in a dairy cartel situation, that excess milk could like go to feed the homeless or something like that. You could have like the cheap milk, right? This milk only gets to be given away for free, right? We're not going to pour it into the ground because that would be wasteful. But no, in Canada, we're like, we have to protect the dairy cartel. And so we'll pour this milk into the ground. Thank you very much. Billions of liters. Wow. India issue is taking center stage as planned. They want the India issue to take center stage because if the India issue takes center stage, we're not talking about Canada. We're not talking about Chinese traders who we know that they're in our government. We're not talking about anything that has to really do with Canada. We're talking about India, and Justin Trudeau says Modi killed a Canadian citizen. And I don't know about that so much. We're going to examine that Canadian citizen claim just a little, and we're going to see what Jagmeet Singh's saying about India, which is rich because he's not allowed to go to India. And and India fires right back at Jagmeet Singh, so that's pretty funny. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, I love memes. I like pictures. I saw this one just this morning, actually. Not on my usual rounds, but after my usual rounds, I was setting the show up, and this was kind of one of those extra things that are added just like this, actually, discover more, right? And I saw this and I thought, man, this is pretty good. So it's Justin Trudeau, and he's got a fire hat on because he's Mr. Dress Up, of course, right? And no, I'm sorry. We all liked Mr. Dress Up. Can't stand Justin Trudeau. Anyway, he's dressed up for every circumstance that he can possibly dress up for. And you've got the caucus mutiny fire that he's put out in the Liberal House, right? The Indian crisis, which he's trying to put out, the affordable housing crisis, which is burning uncontrollably, of course. And he's ignoring that. And he says, we're tackling the burning issues of the day. So I like comics like that. I think that it's interesting because it shows that he's not actually tackling any of the burning issues of the day. He's trying to save his own skin and using a distraction in order to do that. Here, everybody and their dog is saying India killed a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. Here's Jagmeet Singh just to remind you of kind of the tone of the left in Canada at this point in time. It says, today's revelations yesterday make it even more clear Modi's government is engaging in organized crime to murder, extort, and harm Canadians on Canadian soil. So he's accusing Modi, the leader of India, of killing Canadians on Canadian soil, which I don't know, man. I don't know. These guys don't have a great track record of telling the truth, right? Are we all going to get pitchforks and show up at Galen Weston's house because Galen Weston's making the groceries expensive? No. So do I believe this guy? No. Sorry. Not even a little tiny bit. Canadian on Canadian soil? This guy? Are you really? Sure. Okay. The Buckywell says, are we going to pretend this is a Canadian? Hardeep Singh Nijjar was a Sikh terrorist involved with the Khalistani movement, which calls for an independent Sikh state. Born in India, Nijjar entered Canada illegally 3 times and received landed immigrant status through a Liberal MP. He was not a Canadian. He was a terrorist. He is a terrorist. He's a criminal. And like I said yesterday, usually, right, if you're a criminal guy and you're a criminal in one place and then you show up in another place, you're a criminal. Bandit is a good example of that movie based on a real story. Guy bought a health card for like $20. Anyway, regardless of all that, the criminal is the problem, right? And not Modi killing Canadians on Canadian soil. It's weird. And I'm not saying I'm glad he died or anything to that effect, but it's rich pulling this whole, oh my gosh, he's Canadian and we should be worried about Indians running amok in Canada. I'm worried about all the Chinese who appear to be in charge of our government and passing censorship laws. So I'm worried that nobody's talking about that. Here's Alex Zoltan. He says, Michael Rubin is a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and previously worked as an officer at the Pentagon. He doesn't mince words when it comes to how Trudeau has dealt with the Khalistani separatist issue, comparing it to Pakistan harboring Osama bin Laden. So Canada's turning a blind eye to this. Everybody sees it. And we're pretending that it's not happening, and actually Modi's more at fault than we are, right? And Justin Trudeau is trying to save his skin by distracting us with this nonsense. Here is the American guy talking about this.
But look, the Indians have every right to be
too fast. I'm sorry, everyone. I should be better.
For 2 reasons. First of all, when I read many of the leaks, and some of the leaks were also published in the Washington Post not too long ago, there was a lot of assumptions made, 2 or 3 degrees of separation. What the Canadians are essentially saying is that this plot goes all the way to the top of the Indian government because some of the supposed This plot goes to the top of the Indian government because some of those who have conspired are 2 or 3 degrees removed from Prime Minister Modi. Well, you know what? I've done this game before, where I've found that I'm 2 or 3 people removed from the presidents of most countries on earth. That doesn't matter when I get that doesn't mean that when I get a speeding ticket when I'm driving, that somehow the government of China or the government of Turkey or the government of South Africa is responsible. That's the type of logic we're dealing with. When they don't have the evidence, the Canadians seem to make it up and say, hey, look, we're Westerners. You got to believe us. And that doesn't fly in India, the world's largest democracy. Frankly, it doesn't fly in the global south or anywhere else in the world. It doesn't fly in the United States. That's where the Canadians are making their mistake. But let's look at this from another perspective. You know, from an American perspective, what the Canadians are accusing the Indians of doing isn't much different from what the Pakistanis accused the United States of doing when we killed Osama bin Laden. And you know what? Maybe the question the Pakistanis should have asked is, why were we harboring a master terrorist? And the fact of the matter is, Canada, through initially fraudulent immigration chains and then chain immigration, has set itself up to be a money laundering and terror financing, terror supporting hub.
Not great. Not good, right? And so we're in a situation where there's egg on our face. And Justin Trudeau's trying to play the strongman, saying, you know, Modi's killing people in Canada and we're supposed to get on his side. Again, are you getting pitchforks ready for Galen Weston? No? Well, I think you should be as skeptical about these claims. GM Forbes says Indian officials are on their way to the United States to discuss American allegations against them. Why? Because the U.S. raised concerns diplomatically. The Liberals chose to do it publicly to try and gain politically and gain the Sikh vote in Canada. And so Mel Joly says, keeping Canadians safe is our government's top priority. The decision to expel individuals was based on clear evidence gathered by the RCMP in the Nijar case. We urge the Indian government to support our ongoing investigation for the benefit of both countries. And no, like I say again, this guy was saying the Canadians were basically taking liberties and saying we've done 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon and Modi totally did it. And nobody believes them. And I don't think they've got the credibility or the clout to demand that. I think there was a time where probably maybe we did, but not now. Not even a little bit now. Jagmeet Singh, I've already read this, but he says today's revelations make it even more clear. Modi totally killed a guy in Canada. Not really. Canadian citizens must be protected, he says. Our sovereignty respected and our democracy safeguarded. See my full statement below. I don't think Jagmeet Singh is being honest. And his statement of Modi's government is engaging in organized crime to murder, extort, and harm Canadians on Canadian soil, I think goes far beyond his role as leader of who's like the NDP, third party in Canada. Like, what? Be quiet, dude. You don't know what you're talking about. Ryan says India Today going after Jagmeet Singh hard. India Today says Jagmeet Singh, Canada's pro-Khalistani leader with troubled childhood. Jagmeet Singh, the leader of Canada's New Democrat Party, was sexually abused as a child and developed a savior complex due to his alcoholic father. Jagmeet, a Khalistani sympathizer, withdrew his support to the Justin Trudeau government, but is backing him in his conflict with India. Accurate, I think. I didn't know about the sexual assault stuff, but who knows, right? I can't fact check, but that's what India Today says. So interesting stuff, right? Let's talk about Liberals and their imploding and current ongoing caucus revolt. Lion Advocacy says, is highlighting this CBC piece. Liberal backbencher calls on Justin Trudeau to resign as Liberal leader. This is posted October 15th. That's yesterday. And PEI MP Sean Casey says voters in his riding have tuned Justin Trudeau out. They're not listening to him anymore. And Lion Advocacy says any Liberal MP who publicly pressures the Prime Minister to resign should be nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. I disagree. These people have sat around, they sat around and encouraged COVID mandates. They encouraged and allowed Trudeau to wedge people and say, how do we tolerate anti-vaxxers, the rise of the anti-vaxxer rhetoric, all of the vicious name calling and the way the Liberal MPs treated the truckers, the invocation of the War Measures Act or the Emergency Act, whatever it is, all of that those people sat around and did nothing. Like, he's sitting there with his finger up his nose while people are losing their restaurants. They're bringing out horses. They're bringing in military from Quebec or whatever, wherever. And these guys said nothing. And now he says, Trudeau should step down because my constituents aren't listening to him anymore. Not a peace prize. This guy deserves shackles. Maybe you say, listen, if you turn on everybody, maybe you won't get jail time, but you're going to have to give back that MP salary because you're a traitor, right? Sorry. No, way too late. Way too late. No amnesty. COVID deserves an accountability. The actions these evil people took to crash our economy and lock us in our homes, that deserves accountability. And I don't know if he was in office during that point in time, but I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be. I'm not going to look it up right now, but sorry, dude. You should be behind bars for what you did. All of them should be. Garnet Genius says, unbelievable. The Liberals are blocking external investigations into the CBSA, but they expect us to believe that they will conduct a fair and honest investigation into their own corruption. I don't trust these people I wouldn't trust them if they told me that they watered my houseplants. I wouldn't. They're liars, and they're proven to be liars over and over again. Here's 2 minutes. I don't know if this is worthwhile. The back and forth is interesting. He asks, this person if they've been in touch with the PBO. She says she's never been in touch with the PBO since she worked at a previous or two previous jobs. And the point of the video is, I watched it once and I was like, there wasn't really a great point in it, so I'm not going to show it. But link is in the description if you want to hear Garnet Genius and people talk back and forth. Here's Ryan Gerritsen, and he says, this is treasonous, and it shows non-permanent residents in percentages in Canada from the 1970s to now. So up until 2015, it was up to or below 2%. So 2008, it was 1.5%. 2000, it was 0.9%, right? 1999, it was 0.8%. And 1971, it was 0.4%. So low, right? Lower than 2%. Now, 7.3%. 2024, 7.3%. That's crazy. That's crazy. Ryan says, this is treasonous. Yeah, this is an invasion. Why are we paying for this? Why is it okay? What is happening? These people belong in prison. No, nowhere else, prison. Here is Pierre Poilievre. Here's our grab bag of governance. The holiday hangover, right? The tryptophan nap is over and we've woken up. And Merry Christmas, says Pierre Poilievre, wearing exactly the same clothes as in the Thanksgiving photo shoot here. Isn't that weird? Now, it's a little brighter. It's a little bit brighter, but you can do that in Photoshop, post, right? Easy. So he's got the jeans on, the jean overshirt, the black undershirt. The daughter's wearing a pink shirt in the other one, but the same pants and the same boots. The son's wearing exactly the same. The wife's wearing exactly the same. Look, here's the wife, white shirt, black pants, son, bomber jacket, black pants. Daughter, there's a pattern on the pants and the same boots. You can see Poilievre jeans, blue shirt, black t-shirt, done. It's the same frickin' photo shoot. Look at it. Look at it. I didn't notice this. The people at Canada Poly chat noticed this, and they're like, and they linked to somebody else who noticed it. They're like, check this out. Leah, this one here. She's like, look at this. And I said, really? Lazy. I mean, jeepers creepers, I work Thanksgiving, right? The leader of the opposition could work Thanksgiving in such a situation. He's working today. And are these up-to-date pictures, Mr. Poilievre? Are these up-to-date pictures? Did you take this today? Are you kidding me? Come on. So Poilievre says, honored to prepare the sukkah with Westmount's corrugation Shar Hashemian last night, wishing Jews in Canada and around the world a joyful Sukkot as you honor a history of freedom and bring home a bountiful harvest. And then I'm not going to try and say any of that because it'll sound ridiculous. So that's funny. I mean, funny weird, not ha funny, right? If it's ha funny, it's Nelson laughing at our country, if anything. Jeepers creepers. So Viva Fry is responding to this. Justin Trudeau says, check your bank account. Why is it frozen? He says, the Canada carbon rebate goes out today. I'd rather just keep my money, thanks. I'd rather keep my money and not have communists redistribute it through their expensive central redistribution theft plan. I think that that's a bad plan, and I'd rather not have to deal with it. Anyway, Viva Fry says, a payment from us That comes from your taxpayer dollars. Holy heck, I hate this man. Yeah, the payment that he's redistributing is just your money that they took, and now they're giving it to everybody. So they took your money, and now they're giving it to everybody. You're welcome, says Justin Trudeau. I've got choice words for him, but I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to swear on this program, and I try hard to adhere to that. Nick says, funny how they say lower gasoline prices are responsible for the decrease in inflation, but when Trudeau added carbon tax on fuel, he never blamed high gas prices on the massive increase in inflation, which it did increase the cost of everything, right? Trudeau has no clue about monetary policy or economics. Yes, he does. No, he definitely has a clue about it, and he's done everything to harm Canadians. If it was accidental, he might have accidentally made a good choice one of these times, right? And instead, it's systemically gotten worse on purpose. I don't think, any other explanation for it. Here's the article talking about how gas prices being lower dropped inflation, but nobody says gas prices being higher drove inflation, although we all know that's true, right? I saw a guy yesterday. It was like an hour-long lecture on the reality of the Great Depression. And the reality, the things I get into, right? The reality of the Great Depression, he said, was not a failure of commerce, was not a failure of big business or small business or anything like that. It was not a failure of the American commerce at all. He said it was a government-driven policy, and the policy created the negative outcome in the 30s. And I thought he made a good case. And that's true now too. And I think that that's interesting because they're trying to blame Galen Weston. And I'm not falling for it. I'm just not falling for it. Canada's inflation rate, and it's true now because they're trying to say we have to do this carbon tax. Otherwise, we're going to have a world that's not inhabitable in the near future. So they're going to destroy our culture, society, economy, and everything in order to, quote, save the world. And so you have to be on the side of saving the world at any cost. And any cost is your culture, your society, your riches, your edge in the world, your ability to produce goods, your ability to feed yourself, any cost. It's you. We are the carbon they want to remove. So that's the point, right? Bad policy leading to these outcomes. They're not going to save the world, but they need us on board. And so it has to be that dire. It has to be, you're either with us or you want the world to burn and everybody to die, right? That's how they're stacking it. Anyway, Canada's inflation fell to 1.6% in September. Statistics Canada reported Tuesday after hitting Bank of Canada's 2% goal in August. The data agency said the numbers marked the smallest year-over-year increase to the consumer price index since February 21. Lower gasoline prices, which fell by 10.7% on a yearly basis, drove inflation down last month. With gasoline excluded, the all items inflation rate came in at 2.2%, the same as August. The agency noted that prices remain elevated, especially for rent and groceries, even as inflation has cooled off. So gasoline impacts inflation. The price of moving goods, the price of energy, the price of the input will always impact the price of everything else. And forcing those prices to go up is bad policy and can cause, and has in the past caused, economic turmoil, much more than we're seeing now. But I think they have a vested interest. They lose control if it gets that bad. So they have a vested interest in keeping certain things within an acceptable bandwidth, while other things can go well outside of that bandwidth. You know what I'm saying? So like you can get crappy food and still get by. And so people will tolerate it and continue to follow through with society, except their living standards will drop. And their living standards will drop. And as the living standards drop, their goals are being met. They're saying, look, our carbon output, our CO2 output is going down. We're being successful. We're fighting climate change. But in reality, what's happening is our living standards are just dropping and we're not growing as a country. And that's a death spiral. We're not growing with our population. We're shrinking. And the only reason the population is growing is because we're importing people. And it's all economic death spiral. It's like we're being held underwater and drowned. And we're being told this is good because we're fighting climate change. But we have to be able to see around this because it's a lie. It's like you show up at a bank and the bank robbers have dressed up as police, and the real bank robbers are downstairs, and you're talking to fake police who are the bank robbers, and you're saying, everything okay, buddy? And he's like, yeah, we got them already, and they're ready to go in buses down in the basement, right? Like, and they're ready and they've got the whole thing done. We're letting them finish off. And if we do nothing, if we believe their lies, we're going to lose it all, right? And right now we're believing their lies. That's unfortunate. The food professor says our agri-food sector is becoming increasingly uncompetitive. Today, the inflation data gives us another hint. In September, the food inflation rate, 2.4%, was largely driven by categories where domestic production plays a significant role. All of these categories currently exceed the overall food inflation rate. Eggs, 5%, dairy, 2.7%, vegetables, 4%, and meat, 7%. The issue transcends monetary policy or supply chain disruptions. It's a matter of declining domestic competitiveness. Paradoxically, categories more reliant on food imports are mitigating inflationary pressure, which underscores a deeper systemic issue. Historically, such trends are early indicators of a nation's gradual descent into poverty. I just said that. It's kind of what I just said. We're in a death spiral already. And they're saying, no, don't worry about it. It's fine. And we're saying, are you sure? And they say, uh-huh. While they put the pillow back over our face. Okay? That's what's going on. And I wish we saw it, but we don't see it. We don't. And even if you tell somebody, right? Like, look what's happening, everyone. They'll be like, nah. They won't believe it because they don't want to believe it. True. Tom says most liberal government fraud, or more liberal government fraud, the Globe and Mail is reporting, contracts awarded to indigenous businesses are going to shell companies. How do I get one of these shell companies? I'm sure I could produce the nothing that they're giving this money out for. Easy, no problem, right? All I have to do is give the right proposal to the right guy. Where's the other Randy? Assembly of First Nation warns the MPs. I'm not saying I want to commit fraud, but if it's so easy, I mean, you're leaving money on the table if you don't, right? Like, Holly Doan says, Privy Council is concealing hourly rates charged by lawyers who attended 2022's Freedom Convoy inquiry. Like these guys. If these guys didn't commit fraud, they'd never get paid. I'm just kidding. Access to information records show law firms pocketed six-figure payments according to invoices detailed here. So no wonder nobody can get a lawyer in Canada. The government is buying up all the lawyers. I was telling people, and I've talked about it on this show, where I was looking for a lawyer in Guelph, and all of the lawyer offices that I called couldn't help me for various reasons, but most because they were in a conflict of interest already with the city and they were already representing the city. That is if they called me back at all. If they didn't call me back, it was usually because they were already in a conflict of interest with the city and they didn't want anything to do with me because they already knew who I was, right? So weird, right? Weird stuff. Because I'm just a regular guy. I don't feel like I don't even have particularly like too many followers on anything. There are much louder voices than mine, right? So it's weird that my reputation precedes me. Kevin says, we did it. Samadan has been listed as a terror entity. Samadan can no longer use Canada as a base to promote hatred and violence. Supporting a terror organization is a criminal offense. So too little, too late. Raquel Dancho says, the headline says it all. The Liberal government must ban this terrorist organization. Samadan doubles down, says death to Canada, an accurate summation of its goals. Quote, we acknowledge that the community was shocked by the phrase and the burning of the Canadian flag, yet we at Samadan stand by this phrase as the call to action that it is. So now they're a terrorist organization. Yay. And Super Truth says, also, name the traitors. Yeah. So we need to know who the traitors are. People have speculation. Mary Ng, there are others, but who knows? And we should know, especially before we go into another election. But we're not going to know. So be prepared for that. We're not going to know. And again, the more we play along, the elections are rigged. The whole system is corrupt. Our government is corrupt. Our institutions are corrupt. If we play along with it, we lose. So, like, we're not going to win here. And as long as we play their game, we're going to lose. That's it. Save Our Schools says the provincial investigation into the death of Richard Blitzko appears to be a complete sham on the part of Ontario Education. Thanks, Sue-Ann Levy, for uncovering the truth. Very disappointing. And so Sue-Ann Levy says, shameful educrats prop up DEI industry. The review of Blitzko's death is a complete and utter sham. I didn't expect anything else. Never would I expect anything else. Like, these people are covering their own butts. Our institutions are corrupt. The education system is corrupt. The court system is corrupt. Everything is corrupted. And they're not going to admit fault even when it is their fault, even when their training directly led to this result. It's awful, and nobody's going to get justice. within this system because it's corrupt. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Here's Pierre Poilievre says, after 9 years of Justin Trudeau's NDP liberal catch and release policies, no criminal takes the justice system seriously. Signed for a common sense plan to stop the crime. It's 2 minutes. It feels weirdly scripted. It feels like a softball interview. There's something off about it. I'll let you decide, but there's something weird about this. Here we go.
Do you think, though, people take the charges seriously enough? Because in talking with the police locally, they say, these are extensive investigations they have to roll out.
I don't think any criminals take any charges seriously after 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP Liberals. They know that even if they're caught, they'll be released on bail within minutes. We saw the guy who shot the police officer last week. He was out on bail after violating his probation orders 24 times. So, the Trudeau catch and release criminal justice system signals to criminals, you can do whatever you want. You can terrorize, you can attack, you can kill, you can rape, and you will be out on bail within minutes to do it all over again. We need to get rid of that catch and release, bring in jail, not bail, mandatory prison sentences to lock up the criminals and stop the crime.
On bail reform, and we know that our Premier, Doug Ford, talked about this last week too, because he's frustrated knowing that the man who's accused of shooting this Toronto police officer had quite a rap sheet, right? So he's saying something needs to be done at the federal level. The justice minister saying, well, it's a provincial matter. It seems like there's a lot of back and forth here. No. How do you get involved in this? How do you change maybe the directive, if that is something that you would like to see change?
You just have to repeal Justin Trudeau's bail law. It's C-75. We didn't have these problems before Trudeau. He brought in C-75, which brings in an automatic release on bail it's called the principle of restraint. The judges are forced to give the maximum leniency to the newly arrested criminal. And so after 9 years of Trudeau, we have a situation where in Vancouver, the same 40 offenders were arrested 6,000 times in 1 year.
That goes back to the stump speech. The weird part was just at the beginning. I found the back and forth really strange and awkward. It got better, I guess, but I'm still frustrated with the CPC. CBC Watcher says, in 10 years, more than 6 billion liters of milk have been wasted in Canada, the equivalent of the contents of 2,000 Olympic swimming pools. That's it? I mean, 6 billion sounds like a lot more than 2,000 Olympic swimming pools. I mean, I feel like I could drink 2,000 Olympic swimming pools. So this is the food professor, and it's en français, but there's the translation by the CBC Watcher. And it's interesting that we waste that much. I feel like if we had 6 billion extra liters of milk, it wouldn't make that big a difference on the price of milk, but it would not be as wasteful, and so better. Anyway, Ottawa Citizen says, Ottawa has badly neglected road repairs, as any driver or cyclist can tell you. I was talking about this the other day, how I was watching a TV show from the United States that had modern chases. I remember the shows when I was growing up, and how when I was a kid, we didn't have streaming services. You had to go to Blockbuster to get a movie, or you could change the channel. And if you were just changing the channel and you found something you liked, like Star Wars, because they'd play it on TBS all the time, you'd watch the Star Wars until it came to a commercial, and then you'd start channel surfing again, right? Anyway, regardless, back to there used to be those chase TV shows, and those would be good for while there was a commercial on, and then you'd get caught up in watching the chase, and you'd be like, I wonder how this one ends. I was watching the modern chase shows, and I was surprised at how terrible the infrastructure looks, and this looks just as bad. And even around in my town, in Guelph, if you haven't been to Guelph in a while, Guelph is just the wokest, most ridiculous place on earth. It's crazy. And if you go down Willow Road, I think it's Willow. Is it Willow? Or is it? I think it's Willow. No, it's not Willow. It's something else. Hold on. Let me think about it, because it's Silver Creek Parkway, where Value Village is. Value Village is my favorite store. It's like a garage sale all the time. So it's ridiculous that I like it so much, but I do like it so much. There are treasures you can find in Value Village. Driving down Silver Creek Parkway, they have put curbs up to separate the driving lanes from the bike lane on both sides. And so previously, Silver Creek Parkway was like a parkway twin to the Hanlon Parkway to take traffic off the Hanlon and I guess have stores there. And it used to be a 4-lane road, 2 lanes north, 2 lanes south, or east-west, whatever it is. And they changed it to a single lane north and south, east-west, and a single suicide lane in the middle, and then bike lanes. And then now there's bike lanes with those stands Like, you know, the big stands that stand up that show you where I don't know, a separator in the road is. So there's these big stands on every single one of these blocks. Everywhere. It's just everywhere. It looks like a mess. It looks terrible. But there's potholes everywhere too. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And sure, we put parks everywhere, but we should probably maintain our roadways. We should probably reduce taxes. There are all sorts of things we need to do. And instead we're wasting our money with these initiatives for cyclists, and you can't cycle in the wintertime. I mean, they're making it warmer, so maybe you can cycle into October and November. Sure, I guess it's nice to cycle now when it's, 5 degrees in the morning and it's, a little cold. I'm being facetious. It's not really nice to cycle. But why are you creating infrastructure for people who can only use it 8 months of the year at best? It seems stupid and wasteful, like everything else. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful